This podcast is sponsored by Orchid Live. Orchid Live is a specialist occupational health software used by a number of SOM members to run every aspect of their occupational health operations. They hold healthcare records for over 1 million UK workers and work with both in-house OH teams and OH providers. You can find out more at orchidlive.com.
Welcome to SOM's Diamond Days, a limited edition podcast series to celebrate the Society of Occupational Medicine's 90th anniversary. Join me, Amy McEwen, and Anna Jones, and a series of very special guests to have an entertaining look at occupational health, past, present, future. Expect light-hearted conversation and some provocative debates. We have two generations today talking about the world of occupational health and what it's like to work together. So we're really pleased to introduce Mike Goldsmith, founder of Medigold, and his son Alex Goldsmith, now the CEO. With 75 and 50 years of life behind them, they bring decades of experience, stories and lessons from the front line of occupational health. Welcome. So Mike, what was occupational health like when you first started in the 80s?
Actually, in February 78, I was working with a very large insurance company, Sedgwick, who were about to sell themselves to a huge American company. And they had seen that I had set up an occupational health division, which was doing very well. I had 2 or 3 doctors with me. The managing director came to me and said, well, we'd like to sell it because it's doing very well. And I said, no, I'll buy it off you. And I want to continue doing what I'm doing. And that was the beginning of Medigold Health. Going back to the sort of 80s and 90s, it was sort of industrial health. I mean, that's what a lot of it was called. It was a little different. It wasn't quite, I think, as sophisticated as it now is. I'd been a GP for 20 years, 10 years in the NHS, then a further 10 years in the private sector, and moved into insurance medicine.
What did insurance medicine look like in there?
Well, it was basically people who were claiming things and the insurers needed a doctor to say, is that reasonable? Is that person going to get better? So it was much more about policing, if you like, in those days, rather than actually making people better. And there weren't many organisations that were doing only occupational health. There were a lot of people like me in insurance medicine doing things like that.
That was a transition then from being employed by the likes of Sedgwick to setting up your own occupational health business, which then provided healthcare services to other organisations.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what were your original customers, clients like? Were they much more industrial than they are today?
A little bit more. I mean, one that was very, very early on with us was Toyota. I was looking after the whole of Toyota in the UK. And I mean, to begin with, if you imagine, we started off with me and 2 other doctors, and shortly after that, 1 nurse. That's how it started. It cost me £300,000 to set it up. We'd have to mortgage the house to do it. So,
you've now grown that into the largest occupational health provider in the UK.
That's right.
One of.
But what was important about ours was that I had doctors who wanted to get into occupational health who joined me. So we started off as over 3 of us, and by the time Alex took it over, we had very many more than that, and we had technicians and we had occupational health nurses. And the difficulty particularly with nurses, which is an important one early on, is that they had to find time in their spare time to do what is required to get confirmed as occupational health nurse, because it was not possible in those days for them to do it during the day because they had to be employed as a general nurse in a hospital. So many of them were casualty nurses who wanted to get into occupational health.
And that's a really interesting point, because I've got quite a few mentees now who are ex-nurses who've run large occupational health corporate programs, but don't have a clinical license, but are kind of trying to find a place for themselves in this new world of occupational health.
And obviously, over the period of time, we had the Faculty of Occupational Medicine develop. We had a Society of Occupational Medicine, which we all know is done 90 years now. But I mean, all of that helped get things going. But I think that, there's no doubt that doctors had more of a way of learning how to be practicing occupational physicians rather than nurses.
When I started even at Medigold in 2006, the largest revenue stream we had was domiciliary visiting, doctors going to people's houses. And that was at a time when employers were very much using occupational health as a reactive tool to deal with what they would maybe slightly unfairly now term as kind of problem employees, or employees that, they couldn't get regular and effective service from. And it was it was almost a very negative way of looking at it. But it was something that at least there was a start, and that people were beginning to look at health. But to actually get them to deal with it, we literally had to go to people's houses because they wouldn't, make them available in any other way. So it's amazing when you think about where Mike came from to what we now term occupational health, which is obviously a much more positive thing in terms of people looking at it as a force for good and as a thing for doing for the right reasons rather than, I would argue, the wrong reasons. But
which leads me to, I guess, my question to you is, what made you, obviously you saw Mike set up Medigold, and you probably, like I did with my father, discussed kind of what was going on in that world over the dinner table. But what made you choose to actually join Medigold and have a career in building the occupational health business that you have?
I probably didn't show as much interest as I possibly should have done in my father's career early on, as all sort of young people may not do. I mean, I did, but it wasn't top of my agenda to be sitting down with him every 5 minutes and asking how it's going. But actually, I was always very proud. He'd done lots of different doctoring prior to setting up Medigold, and I would always been very impressed with that, not least involving being the chief medical officer for the 1994 World Cup, which I very much enjoyed.
Wow.
Getting to go to a World Cup final in LA when you're 18 is never a bad thing. So I did take some interest in my dad's career, but if I'm honest, on the occupational health bit, I was just interested in, he'd taken a risk, he'd set up Medigold. I obviously wanted it to succeed. I was in a career in investment banking, which, to be honest, had its ups and downs. There was good bits, there was frustrating bits. And at the exact time, I was feeling like what was next for my career in terms of which move would I make in financial services. Mike sort of got ill and wanted to, attack that with all his gusto. So sort of said, do you want to come and effectively mind the ship whilst I treat cancer and get better, which he obviously, because he's on this podcast, did a very good job of, because that's nearly 20 years ago. It is 20 years ago.
I'm still alive.
Still here. I joined basically because Mike wasn't very well. I had every intention at the time of returning to my previous industry. That's what I trained to do. And actually I saw very quickly the really exciting world that occupational health is and what it can mean for people and for employers. I think my dad had always impressed me being an entrepreneur, but actually I think I saw quite quickly that he had even taken that big risk and starting a business. I think he hadn't quite seen quite where it could go, because there was all sorts of opportunities which took a bit of risk to do, which maybe at the time of Mike, where Mike was in his life, maybe it wasn't keen, but that's where it was quite good. I then saw the opportunity and decided to stay and not go back. And that did help, the fact the financial crisis happened in 2008. So, it was good. It was good timing in terms of me making the commitment to it. And I'm still here because it has proved tremendously rewarding. It's a very exciting industry to be in now.
What do you think the key success factors then and now are for a successful occupational health business?
So I think that one is that you do your medicine properly. So in other words, quality. And that's true of doctors, nurses and technicians. And that's to do with training. So I think it's very important. All the good occupational health outfits in Britain do their own training and to make sure that happens. And of course, there's qualification. There's a qualification for nurses, a qualification for doctors in that specialty. And that's important too. Being able to have consultations online has helped a lot. I think that's been very helpful.
To be fair to Mike, in that pursuit of growth, Mike was very keen to keep my feet on the ground around doing things properly and the quality of the medicine. And I think the industry as a whole has been pretty good at that. We're not a regulated industry, but we've almost self-regulated. We're not registered by the CQC, right? So we have our own now, regulatory framework in CQOS, but even that's sort of self-inflicted. It's around, we have a big pride as an industry. And I think that stems from pioneers like Mike and others who decided to do things the right way rather than the wrong way.
I was so busy getting this all done and growing and whatever that I never took the qualifications. I'm rather grateful that I've been given an honorary FFOM because of what I've done, but I just didn't have time for it.
Well, if you're pioneering, then obviously often the qualifications don't exist. I think you and my father are the two people that got honorary FFOMs for being in in the 90s, in
That's
those
right,
days
yeah.
it was the mental health support at AstraZeneca. But to being involved in this sort of world in the 70s, 80s, 90s predated the qualifications because you were busy pioneering the industry.
Yeah.
Alex, I've heard you speak brilliantly about the work that Medigold, but also that other providers are doing kind of for the future of occupational health. You talked at length about the work that Medigold have put into AI. So I'm really interested to hear from you where you see occupational health going in the next 90 years. What we'll be talking about in our 180-year podcast.
Well, I've just praised Mike and others for making sure the industry is done properly, and I think that's absolutely right. If I have any kind of other flip sides of that coin, it's occupational health as an industry hasn't always been the best at evolving and changing. Change is a very uncomfortable thing for many organisations and people. I think occupational health is very comfy in what it does well. Obviously, you're dealing in the health of people, so you can't just go willy-nilly changing everything every 5 minutes. It needs framework and it needs governance. But I think with the way the world's moving, it's almost like occupational health for years had people like Mike going around telling HR directors they should care about it. And actually some did, the forward-looking ones, and some frankly didn't and would tick a box. Some wouldn't even do that. And we finally now got to this place with the mental health crisis and with COVID happening where actually you've got the businesses actively saying, we want this. So finally the floodgates are open and almost the industry is now going, whoa, are we ready for this, influx of demand? And I think the honest answer is it probably isn't, right? So it needs to really move quickly now. And the way we've sort of, as Medigold, decided to do that is to just, clinicians are in short supply, good ones even less. The ones that, do it at the quality that we talked about just now with Mike, even less. So it's about trying to get the really good ones that you've got, really focusing on the patients and on the employees and on the time they spend with them and less time on administration and distraction and travel and all the other things that can really weigh on a clinician's mind. We try and remove those things. So Medigold's working on AI to do that and I had quite some success with it. I think the future is absolutely less time spent doing administration and the things that aren't clinical and more time spent, and even within a consultation, spending time in the consultation talking about the actual crux of the matter, not the background or some of the things that actually good technology could capture in a repeatable way, really getting to the stuff that only a human can do one-on-one and giving them clinicians more time for that, I think is the future, because there's going to be a huge increase in the demand for what we do over the next 5 to 10 years.
And one final question for you both. I'll start with you, Mike. What is the best and worst thing about working with each other?
The best is that I trust my son because I watched him grow. And the best is that he's a fantastic entrepreneur and he's grown this company from about £6 million a year when I was giving it to him, as it were, to a lot more. We work well together and I've done 53 years as a doctor and given up this year. So, wow. I'm going to be 77 in a month's time.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
And Alex, I'll give the last word to you. So best and worst thing about being in this industry or working with your dad?
My dad and I are very similar and can occasionally clash because of that. But actually, I think I will say that I think if anybody's gone through their life with a dad or a parent and they haven't had the opportunity to work with them, then I would say their life's the poorer for it, because actually I've enjoyed it and it's been, it's been some frustrating times, but I've also, I got to do it and a lot of people never get to do that. So it's a privilege I got. So that's a good thing. The bad thing, the change thing, I used to say, well, how about we try this? There would always inevitably be, what's wrong with the way we do it now, which I think that's a very normal thing in a parental child relationship, irrespective whether you're at work or not, right? It's just, if it ain't broken, whatever.
I worked with my dad for a decade, so I'm with you. And actually, I echo everything you say, both of you, in that it was a real privilege, and I certainly wouldn't have had the career I've had in terms of health and mental health and workplace and all those things. But it also presents challenges, but also unique opportunities to have a different relationship.
Correct. Yeah, no, it's been good. And occupational health, I think, is in the people like Mike having started it and pioneered it. And there's others, obviously, and some of whom will be, are still part of the SOM now and will be listening to this. They're all a really impressive club of people. And I think it's beholden upon us as like the next generation to make sure that, to be honest, I'm 50 this year, as you said, so I'm probably not the next generation anymore. There's probably one underneath that now. And actually, I think it's in good hands. There's lots of challenges, but I think the foundations have been nicely set, and finally people want what we do and they're embracing it. So let's go for it. Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by Orchid Live. Orchid Live is a specialist occupational health software used by a number of SOM members to run every aspect of their occupational health operations. They hold healthcare records for over 1 million UK workers and work with both in-house OH teams and OH providers. You can find out more at orchidlive.com.